thing that I say all the time in prayer daily is like, Lord, empty everything in my cup of me and overfill it with what you want me to have, right? If I'm operating off of my own strength, it's just limited. It's not gonna happen. I don't know if I would have been here today. I work my butt off. You have to be willing to do the work, but as long as you're willing to do the work, honestly, you can go as far as your mind can take you. I'm Mattie James. I'm a lifestyle influencer and entrepreneur, and I love what I do. As a wife and mom of 3, I know what it's like to try to balance it all, but I would not have it any other way. Having immigrant parents definitely gives you like bravery, but also a very disciplinarian father. Not happy that I left college to become a pop star.
I want to be a rapper, Mom.
Okay, just rap your way to class and make sure you said your prayers. What I realized is that there's 4 adjustments that women need to start making, because a lot of times we want to just scrape morning routine clean, and it's like, no. These are the 4 things that women need to pay attention to. We need to pay attention to our...
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Wealth Within Reach. I'm your host, Erica Brown, and you guys are in for a major treat today. Today I am here with the one and only wife, mom, entrepreneur, Miss Liberia, okay, blogger, social media influencer, and now author, the Mattie James.
Well, thank you. Let's make sure I got your money for that intro, because yes.
Thank you so much for being here, girl. Oh my gosh, you are going to, I know you're going to free some women here today.
I hope so.
I always go back to our lunch that we had this past summer, I think it was. And I love, one of the things that stuck out to me that you said that was just so amazing. You said that, you said, I've always wanted to be a star. And I loved how you owned fully who you were and what you wanted for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I love that so much. And I feel like as a woman and just trying to figure out, like trying to accept who I am and who God made me to be, and walk in that is just something that to me is a form of everyday magic that I see by just following you on social media.
Much. I appreciate that, because I feel exactly what you just said. Mm-hmm. I'm like, God created us to thrive.
Yes.
Like God created us to thrive, and He really did all of these good works for us to prosper. And so I understand that we are all going to therapy now.
Yes. Thank God.
And we are learning how to recover and heal and cope.
Yes.
But that's not the stopping point. That is just a step in the process.
Yes.
And so, my company, the Mattie James company, we really want women to create an everyday where they thrive. Mm-hmm. That's really, really important to us, because it thriving is not exclusive to one type of woman.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter relationship status. It doesn't matter if you have kids. It doesn't matter what your tax bracket is. Thriving and discovering your magic and applying it every day is for you.
Yes.
And you have permission to go for it,
Yes. And that's a huge message. I think about when I was working a 9-to-5 and, wife and mom and trying to manage all the things, and you're going through the daily routine. And a lot of times you're just trying to get through the day. You're trying to make it to Saturday, or you're trying to make it to the next time you're off of work, the next vacation, right? And so I love that message of trying to figure out, how do I find magic in every single day? And I just think about, even as an entrepreneur, we're busy. I feel like my days are roller coasters. Sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I have freedom. I can cuddle with the kids on Monday and, not have to be anywhere. Yep. And some days I'm like, I haven't seen my kids. I feel so guilty. It's hard to manage it all. And so you take us with you, I feel like. I mean, even this week, okay?
This week is a week,
You had a launch, an amazing launch for a new community, and all your family got sick, right?
My whole family, except for me. Everybody got sick. My husband, my 3 kids. And it's just a lot.
It's one thing I know you're telling us to look for everyday magic. How do you dig deep and look for everyday magic whenever it's when times get really hard?
You know what? You really have to go looking for it, right?
Yes.
One habit I started cultivating this year, actually recently in the last quarter, is as soon as I open my eyes, before I touch my phone, before I go to the bathroom, before I do anything, I get on my knees and I thank God. Sometimes it's a 2-minute prayer. Sometimes it's a 20-minute prayer, but I just like to lock in and start from the beginning. I want to start from my source because a lot of times we try to fill our own cup. And one thing that I say all the time in prayer daily is like, Lord, empty everything in my cup of me, every drop, wipe it dry, and overfill it with what you want me to have.
Wow,
right?
That's so good.
Because if I'm operating off of my own strength, it's just limited. It's not going to happen.
It's limited.
I don't know if I would have been here today.
I was like, is she coming?
This week was a lot of 2-minute prayers, but, starting there and really then adjusting accordingly. And I think that's one thing we need to start having discussions about. We need to start having discussions about adjustments as women.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, Everyday Magic is basically my framework for life. It's about making every day meaningful, aesthetically pleasing, goal-oriented, intentional, and consistent. You cannot make every day perfect. We now know that.
Right.
But when you do these 5 things, it's on purpose because Erica's magic is different than Mattie's magic. It still matters because it's in context to your life.
Right.
And to me, magic only matters when it's in context. So that's the thing we also have to remember, you know? Good. So the new thing, though, that I've recently discovered about, especially during a really hard week like this, right? Is that I'm incredibly blessed. And all of us have different privileges. All of us have, some of us have teams, some of us have family, some of us, have different things. Some of us have flexibility because we have entrepreneurship. And like you said, on a Monday, that might look like doing nothing. And on Tuesday, you are stretched thin and you're like, do I have a family? Because I haven't seen them today, And so what I realized is that there's 4 adjustments that women need to start making and recognizing, because a lot of times we want to just scrape a morning routine clean and think like, we need a new morning routine. I'm not disciplined. I'm lazy. And it's like, no. These are the 4 things that women need to pay attention to. We need to pay attention to our season, both literally and purposefully, right? So what is your goal this year, or what is the goal in this particular season in your life, right? When you have a newborn baby, it's like just getting as much sleep as possible.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I'm not piling everything else on.
Yeah, I cannot do the things that I could do, like, when I have an older kid or before I had kids, right? Yeah. So that's a huge thing. So you need to pay attention to the season. And also how you operate in summer is not how you operate in winter. That's just what it is, right?
I never thought about that.
You have to, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, season is about context, season about purpose, because a winter coat isn't as valuable in May as it is in December, right? It doesn't lose value, right? It's just out of context in May. That's why the season is important. Then you have your cycle. A lot of us don't pay attention to how our energy shifts when our cycle, what week we are in our cycle, right? A lot of us just think our cycle is our period. And I'm like, no, boo-boo, it's a whole 28 day
28 days. Yes.
So in the weeks where I am like super energetic, I can recognize that. I'm like, okay, this is when I want to plan in-person meetings. This is when I want to do heavy lifts, because I have not only the energy, but then I also have the enthusiasm.
Yes,
to
the ovulation is when I'm like, okay, I'm feeling
gosh,
real
you're
nice.
Feeling loose. You're like, oh my gosh, let's go out here and stuff like that. You're like, I was up late and I'm up early. Like, this is good. So you have that, right? Yeah. Then you also then want to think about your circumstance. This is what a lot of us also don't take into consideration, right? For me, because my kids go to school, my circumstance on Monday is different than my circumstance on Saturday. I can operate uninterrupted at 10 a.m. on Monday than I can on Saturday at 10 a.m. That is a circumstance.
It's game time on Saturday for us.
Game time, okay? It's like, get dressed, we've got to go. You've got this,
brunch,
you've got
what?
that. Yeah, exactly, brunch.
I got to do brunch on a Tuesday.
Yeah, I have to do brunch on a Tuesday because the way these 78 kids are set up, I won't be there, okay? So it's really one of those things that we have to start taking into consideration. And then last but not least is support. Because every one of us has support in a different way. Some of us have less support than others. Support can be your village. Support can be your nanny. Support can be school. It could be after school activities, extracurriculars, a babysitter. So support looks different for every single person. You know what I mean? It would be really inconsiderate of me to have a conversation with a single mom who lives out of state from her family
right.
than somebody who is married and I live 7 minutes within my, my
Village.
kids' grandparents.
Right.
Yeah. And I can give them a call and be like, can you come over? I got to go run to the store. Right.
Yeah.
So those are things, again, that put things in context. And so a lot of times we have a routine, right? But maybe you're on your period, right? Your husband's out of town, right? And it's a weekend. And you think like, oh, I have to change my morning routine because my morning routine didn't work. And it's like, no, boo-boo. You just need to make the necessary adjustments, right? Just like you would adjust the thermostat. This is the same thing. To me, those are the 4 adjustments that keep everything in context. Yep.
Or in the same scenario, or someone has these plans. Okay, this is my weekend. I'm going to work on my side hustle. I'm going to be looking for properties. I'm going to, do all the list of things that Erica told me to do in the mentorship program. And you on your cycle, and then you don't do it because you're tired, because you're like, you actually need to rest. Literally. And you feel bad.
And you feel bad.
And that's not okay.
And even worse, a lot of times we feel like a failure, right? And it's like, well, honey, you were losing blood. So that's a good reason why you didn't do something.
Right. No, that's a big deal. I think it was 2 years ago, I read a book and it helped me to actually reorganize and to think through that. I actually reorganized my whole work schedule around my cycle.
Absolutely.
And it really helped me to get more things done with ease.
Absolutely.
Which is so amazing.
And the ease is something that we can set up for ourselves. A lot of times we think ease just happens, accidentally, you know what I mean? Yeah. Or if we hit a lottery and, and it's like, that's not really how real life works. You know what I mean? You can position yourself for ease, but you've got to build schedules and build routines based off of those 4 adjustments. And also too, sometimes things come up, and that's why those adjustments are important to recognize, because it's like, okay, I thought I wasn't going to have the kids, but I actually do have them now. I won't have them at 12. So I actually can get a quick workout in because the park's right down the street and I can walk a couple of miles.
That's good.
So it's like that's the power I want women to realize that they have. That is what magic is. Magic isn't being able to make a perfect cake or a charcuterie board. If you love to do those things, I know I do, that's great. But magic is being able to adjust and say, you know what, this isn't going to make my life easy. It's not going to make it not easy, because that's without effort, and we always want to put forth effort. But it's like, how can I simplify this, right? How can I make this work without strife?
Make this work for me.
Exactly.
Oh man, it's so many gems. I'm like, where do I start? So many gems. Let me tell you about my upcoming event. Trust me when I tell you, you're going to want to hear this. It's time to step into a world beyond your typical real estate conference. Imagine walking into the room and you instantly find your people. I would like to introduce you to the Owning It and Living It experience. This is a 3-day unique experience that merges Black and brown culture with real estate insights to help you think about building wealth in a different kind of way. This isn't just about making money, although we know how to do that. This is also about welcoming you into an environment where you feel seen, known, and safe. Join me for an unparalleled experience designed to help you both financially and empower you through the power of real estate. The Owning It and Living It experience is November 1st through 3rd at the Intercontinental Hotel in Atlanta. Yes, sis, we're in Buckhead. To learn more, go to owningitandlivingit.com or scroll down in the show notes, and I'll see you there. I'm thinking about the woman who has dreams, who has ambitions, and as women, we all know that we tend to put ourselves last or bottom of the list. And year over year, we have these dreams and we have these goals, and then we look at it as, okay, I can't do anything differently until my circumstances change. What you said made me think about, instead of me looking at my circumstances, my situation, my 11 kids, my this, my that, my whatever, my husband who may not be support, if that's one situation, instead of looking at it like my circumstances is holding me down, I love how you made me feel like with your 4-step process, how you can make your circumstances actually work for you.
Absolutely.
That's so
Absolutely.
good. That's really good.
Because it's important for us to recognize what he said, this too shall pass.
Yes.
That's why you have to recognize the season. That's why I started first, right? You go season, you go cycle, you go circumstance, then you go support, right? You got to go like that. Because a lot of times we're devaluing things, but it's just not the season for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't make that thing less valuable. It's just out of context. Context is really out. It's out here whooping our tail on social media.
It is.
And definitely in everyday life. We have to keep it in context. So yes, you're allowed to adjust.
Yes.
And here's the thing, like, even though we're using different language a lot of times, it's like we're still really attached to perfectionism, right? Because we're trying to be this constant. It's like, you're not a machine.
No.
Right? You're a
what
human
did Beyonce say? I am not a robot.
I'm just not.
I am not a robot.
Yeah. I'm not.
Nobody's robot. Oh man, that's so good. It reminds me, I have a student in my community. We went through the mentorship program. My whole thing is like, I teach people how to invest, but not like your normal gurus. That's like, I don't teach people how to invest by just looking at the numbers and figuring out like which property makes $500 a month and then you move forward. I say, what's your dreams? What's your life? What is your current setup? And let's reverse engineer to figure out what works for you.
Yes.
And I have this one student who she said, you know what? My season of life is crazy. She said, but I have this money and I want to make it work for me.
Right.
And so she actually became a fully passive investor.
Wow.
She actually started lending money to a close friend that she had that was investing in short-term flips.
Yeah.
And I was like so proud of her.
Yeah.
She was so hesitant to tell me. And I was like, oh my gosh, you took advantage of your circumstance and you made it work for yourself. I was like, you are an investor. I was like, that's so amazing. So I just love this conversation that we're having. Okay, I want to shift gears for a second. So in your book, you talk about how, you moved to New York and you dropped out of college.
Yes.
And you didn't have anything going on in a really expensive city. And like, that was huge. What did that experience teach you about your work ethic, about what it means to make it work, to like, what did that experience teach you? That's a big deal.
Millennials, all of us had that New York dream, and you know what I mean? Because it was like
it
was the basis of so many movies, right? Like move to Hollywood and become a star, and move to New York and get on Broadway.
Right.
And I always had the lifelong dream of becoming a singer. I wanted to be a pop star.
You told me that. Yeah. I need to go on YouTube. Is there some clips of you singing somewhere on YouTube?
There's not, by the grace of God.
Oh,
There's
man.
There's not. Okay. I know. I mean, I did. I auditioned for American Idol. I auditioned for Making the Band. It was like a whole thing. It was like really what I wanted to do.
Yes.
But what was interesting though, I never stopped writing. I was writing in high school. I wrote, throughout college. I went to school for broadcast journalism. I wanted to become the Oprah of sports.
I love that.
Because I love sports and I love talking, as you can tell.
Yes.
So
love it.
Having immigrant parents definitely gives you like bravery, but also, a very disciplinarian father. He was not happy that I left college to become a pop star.
Think about as parents how we'll be like.
I'm thinking about if one of the kids that was like, yeah, I'm leaving school.
Christian's like, I want to be a rapper.
For who?
I want to be a rapper, Mom.
Okay, just rap your way to class. And make sure you said your prayers on your way there, So yeah,
that's a big deal.
It's a really big deal. And now I'm so appreciative of my parents for, even though they very reluctantly let go, they did. And, now Daddy's like my biggest fan.
Yes.
Like, at his birthday party, he's like pulling out my book. He's like, my daughter. And I'm like,
I love it.
But I think it was really important for me because I grew up in a very, very sheltered home. You know what I mean? I was very protected. I was a token Black kid in all white environments all my life. And that was really important for me to go learn about other cultures, outside of my own and my family's.
Right.
And it really changed the game for my work ethic.
Yeah.
Because I had no money. And what you do have to do in New York is pay money to live.
You sure do, and it's not cheap.
It's not cheap. And I was really fortunate, and honestly, we have family friends who, even though they were in very, humble and humble environment, they let me stay with them, and I was able to get on my feet. But I did not have the luxury of, I could call home, of course, if anything was seriously wrong. But my dad cut me off financially.
Yeah. He was like, all right.
He was like, you grown, go be grown.
Yeah.
I learned about being grown real quick.
Real quick.
But I also realized how committed I am to something when I really believe it. You know, they say that, they said that seeing is believing, but believing is actually seeing. That's why faith is so important, you know, because it's like, you know, it's like if you're saying seeing is believing and I haven't seen it, then you're saying I can't believe it. But baby, it has to start really from the top.
It does.
Right?
It does.
So it's like I have to believe it to see it. And I really did that. And so no, I didn't become a pop star, but that is actually where I was introduced to blogging and ended up moving to Atlanta a couple years later and started my blog from what I learned and saw in New York City.
Wow. That's huge. That's a huge leap. That's really awesome. That's great. You went to New York and you're like making it big and you're trying to, you know.
I was making it medium.
That's a big deal to audition for American Idol and, you know, and so you're trying to figure it out. And one of the things that requires is self-promotion. That requires you putting yourself out there and telling the world who I am. And one of the things that I actually talk to my students about in my mentorship community, we want opportunities to come to you. So you actually have to tell people that you are investing in real estate. And so we talk about that. And a lot of times we're the only ones kind of doing the thing that we're doing. So there's some type of like, you're just not comfortable with like putting yourself out there as much. What has that been like for you? Like, how have you learned how to be so comfortable with pitching and putting yourself out there and not really caring about other people's opinions?
That's the part. Well, I think you really do have to become accustomed to being uncomfortable because it's really not a comfortable thing, right?
So you telling me it's not comfortable?
It's not comfortable. It's familiar, but it's not comfortable.
Okay. And it's okay to be uncomfortable?
That's for somebody, huh?
Yeah.
It is okay to be uncomfortable. It is okay to be uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Again, you shouldn't be in strife.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Something doesn't have to be easy because that easy means without effort, and anything you want requires effort, right? Yes. But not everything you want requires comfort.
Yes.
So I think that's what we have to start being honest about, you know? So pitching still makes me very uncomfortable because you're still asking, you know, and I ask for scary numbers because, you know,
you got a team, you got a business.
I have payroll, I have a mortgage, I got 11 kids, you know, so one of them goes to private school. It's a lot, you know? So with that being said, it really was about being more clear on what I wanted more than I was scared of asking for it. And that really is the difference, right? Everything is 80-20. When we're starting out, when we're pitching, a lot of us have 80% of the fear of asking for what we want because we only have 20% of the clarity of what we actually want.
That's
when
good.
you flip that on its head, when you get clear, fear don't really matter.
Right.
It's like, you know what? The no stings a little bit less, you know? It still stings, but it just stings a little bit less, you know? It's kind of like going to the gym, you know, after you've lifted for a while. Like anytime you lift, whether you've been lifting for 2 days or 2 years, it still burns,
right?
But you've now become familiar with the burn. A lot of times we stop when we're unfamiliar with resistance,
right?
And you just have to become familiar with it.
Yeah.
I think what I also realized, and you know, you said this, is like I knew that I wanted to be successful in working with brands and working with companies. When I started blogging, this was even before Instagram was really a thing. You know, TikTok wasn't a thing yet. There wasn't a lot of faces that looked like me. And it was really important to me to be a representation to a girl who looked like me to say, you can do this too. It doesn't matter that these spaces are all white. You still matter. You still value. And you go in and you ask for what you want. Stop acting like they're doing you a favor. You're actually doing them a favor with your presence. And that's not from a place of ego. That's from a place of me doing the work.
Yes.
That's from a place of me showing up.
Yes.
From me being unapologetic in my work ethic. There's no level of work beneath me.
Yes.
And because I have that attitude, I can walk in with that kind of confidence, right?
I love that.
And I think that was something that was really important to me. And I've been really blessed because my work has helped a lot of people do and see that.
Yes.
But it certainly wasn't easy. You know, being the first or being the only is sometimes very lonely.
We talk about that a lot here.
But it's worth it.
Yes.
It's absolutely worth it because now you see so many Black and brown faces now in the lifestyle influencer space, in the influencer space in general, especially in the capacity of working with brands. And it's very exciting.
It's very exciting. It's very exciting. Man, what you said to me was your work ethic, being really good at what you do. to me, you are saying you understand your value.
Absolutely.
And so I think that that's something that we have to continue to acknowledge, and we have to continue to nurture that. Being the first and oh my gosh. Yeah, we talk about that a lot too, because a lot of us here, we're the first ones that are even, I mean, a lot of us, we're just happy to, I remember my mama and my daddy, they was happy to own a house.
Yeah.
Because my dad grew up sharecropping.
Absolutely.
He grew up literally picking cotton.
Yes.
So the fact that we owned a house, he was like, we made it, you know?
It, yeah.
So now we're next generation and we're like buying properties and we're investing and we're like, wow, we're the first, you know? I really want to hear about, because I know community is super important to you. I want to hear about how community has supported you to get to the place that you're at, and just see how, like, to really tell people the value of community and how, like, you have been blessed by it over these years.
It's massive.
Yeah.
So there's two sides of my company. The Mattie James company, which is the lifestyle, you know, I talk about motherhood. I talk about home management and organization. And then we have another side that really happened in 2020, because I started going live. I started doing this thing called Mattie Live.
I was there.
And I started teaching creators how to monetize
on
and grow
Thursdays,
their influence.
Right?
Yeah. Wednesdays at 11. Yep. Wednesdays at 11. And it became way bigger than we thought. And so then we just were like, okay, let's just like start a Facebook group. So if people want to watch the replays, we'll put the replays there. So now we have 10,000 members.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, this is huge. And we just recently moved to Circle, so we can have a lot more control. We don't have to deal with the interference of the algorithm. But here's why it's massive. And it's so interesting that this year specifically, so many people have been sharing on Threads, DMing me about what they have learned from those lives, or taking one of my programs, or just being in the community. And I had one girl say, she was like, I became a 6-figure creator after being in your community and taking your Pitch Please course. And she's like, and I know so many others who have that same testimony.
Wow.
And but that was more than the money, right? Because it's like, yes, great. That's what business is about, making money.
Yeah.
But to me, for her to say, I know so many others, that means she has a community. That means they're talking. That means they're encouraging each other.
Yeah.
And again, when you know that you're not by yourself, you move differently. Because the thing about not being by yourself is about feeling safe. And confidence comes from safety. When you know that you won't fall all the way because there's other people there to catch you, you move differently.
That's good. You move real different.
Yep.
It's a sense of like peace and security. Like, I can do this. I can try this. I may not have all the pieces. I may not know all the steps, but I know I got my people there to help me.
Yeah. You just move differently. Like when you enter a room at a party and you know that you have colleagues or friends there, you move differently.
Yeah.
When you enter a party, you don't know anybody there, you're a little bit more guarded, right? You're a little bit more tense. You know, you might show up, but you almost kind of shrink a little bit because you're like, I don't really know nobody here, you know? So it's really important to have your people there. And it's really important to go find your people.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And sometimes your people look differently depending on like the niche or what your purpose is and what your goal is. You know, for Boss Fluence, it's really for creators to learn how to grow their influence to make 6-figure businesses. You know, we have another community and more where we help women create an everyday that they thrive in. And that's what that's about. But to me, those two things matter, even though they are noticeably different. But when you find your people, you navigate differently. You know what I mean?
You really
we can do every day together because we know we're not by ourselves. Like, girl, I had a really tough day. How did you get through this? Because I know y'all just went through this recently. That's what that's about.
Right. Exactly. If you feel like you're finding it really hard to find those things, those communities, and someone may look at it, it's like, oh, I'm going to pay for friends. No, you're not paying for friends. You're paying to get into the room. Right? Because that's where the people are that are growing and that are thriving and that are trying to get better or trying to connect. And so I think that's like so important. We'll definitely conclude with this. Even more in 2023 last year, that was very hard. It was very hard. Lots of people that I know experienced a huge shift. And it really showed the value of being in community and how that is just, is so important. So is there anything else you would say to that person who is just like, I really desire to get in the room with more Black and brown people who are growth-minded, who are really trying to do something different, but I'm afraid to put myself out there? What would you say?
You're not weak because you don't want to be by yourself. a lot of times we associate being alone with strength, by being the lone wolf. That does not make you quote unquote strong, right? And it's really important to understand that you will learn from others, whether they're little things, whether they're big things. And also that having friends, having community, finding your people, they can help you put yourself in just put you in a position to go and win. So don't be afraid to enter the room, even if you don't know anybody in there. Start small. Maybe you're not walking into a room where it's 1,000 people, but maybe you're going to a room where there's 20 people. Don't be afraid to start small, but don't think you need to isolate yourself to win. That is not how you win. There's no person on the face of this earth that you admire who won because they isolated themselves.
Nope.
But it's also a huge misuse of God's creation, yes, you, to be by yourself. You were put here to interact and cross paths with other people. We need each other. And that's really, really important.
Absolutely. And again, as I would say all the time, we are collaborating. We are not competing here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Wealth Within Reach. I will see you on the next one.